Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Cal Sheehy. I'm the mayor of Lake Havasu City, and I'm joined with City Manager Jess Knutson.
Merry Friday.
Yes, thank you for being here with Coffee with the Mayor on Friday, March 3rd, 2023. So like usual, we'll go ahead and give updates that are happening in Lake Havasu City, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have on any of the topics that we mentioned or anything that might be on your mind regarding Lake Havasu City. So first, we'll start with the housing study. We just had a council meeting on Tuesday. We had a work session right before the council meeting where the Partnership for Economic Development unveiled the details of the housing study. What the housing study was it was commissioned by the Partnership for Economic Development, which is Lake Havasu City's partner for economic development, to identify what the housing needs were. So those of us that live here, we know we don't have enough housing, and we know that the cost of housing is going up. But we just know that because we've talked to our friends or our neighbors or our family members that can't afford housing or are having issues. But we really needed to have some data. What type of housing situations do we really have? What type of housing inventory or housing stock do we need to get more of? What type of land availability do we have to be able to do that? And then they were able to put all of these findings together into one study, and that study then is going to be able to be used by all of the partners that can collaborate to make something happen. So now people that build housing, they can take this study and they can take it to the bank and they can get financing, or they can the banks can take it to someone that might build housing and get somebody encouraged to be able to do that. It really is a lengthy document. One of the most glaring pieces of information that I saw coming out of it is that the state of Arizona, the average percentage of apartment homes in the state is 13.1%. In Lake Havasu City, it's less than 3%. And so I use that statistic not because we need that many more apartment homes, but it really shows the difference between our community. I had one citizen come to me and say, well, is that what we want? Do we want it to be 13%? I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it just shows the variance that we have in housing stock across the state versus what we have here in Lake Havasu City. So Jess, I know you were involved in some of the preliminary meetings before we had the work session on the housing study. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts or...
Yeah, it was a really good study because you take a look at not just some of the things that we can think about as we move forward, but as you indicated, there's a lot of data, a lot of stats that are contained within that study. One number that's actually gone down, but it's still very, very high for any city, is the number of what the census would indicate as vacant homes in Lake Havasu. So that these are homes that don't count towards the census because they're either short-term rentals or vacation homes, or just part-time residents that would utilize them. 25% of our housing stock is vacant homes. So just think about that. Above all the homes in Lake Havasu City that don't go towards any type of rental or otherwise. From a city service perspective too, we provide services to those people when they are in town. So our census might say we're 58,000 people, but it's well over 70,000 if you think about at any time with some of that housing stock that's out there. But yeah, a lot of good information that was contained within there. In the end, it shows that we have less of multifamily, affordable workforce housing than we need to. And for Havasu, we don't have any sister cities that border us directly. So in other areas in the valley or throughout the state, you might not have all the housing stock you need, but the three neighboring cities around you do, and so it works out just fine. And I guess the last point that I'd like to make, because we hear a lot of comments about, well, we don't need any more of this high density housing. It's going to attract maybe a CD type of demographic, or or bring down property values, those types of things. We got to remember who would be renting these units. These are teachers, right? Nurses, those in the tourism industry, and the restaurant industry, and otherwise that we rely on to fix our AC units and do maintenance around the house, or help us when we go and spend money in the local community, at the grocery stores, etc. So these are the folks that are looking for a one-bedroom apartment that they can pay $900 a month for. We hear that number quite a bit. So a lot of data, a lot of information, a few things that we can think about as we move forward. But you indicated too, Mayor, it's land availability. There isn't a whole lot of land in Lake Havasu City where you can build these types of projects. And we had I'm sure the transition will come into a recent council meeting where there was a project that was proposed, but all the residents in the surrounding area said, "Not my backyard. This is it's going to cause too much traffic. It's going to take away my view. It's going to cause noise. It's going to take away the quiet little neighborhood that we've always enjoyed over the years. Okay, well, if we don't build something there, where do we build it? And so those are the conversations that sparked through this process and through that recent agenda item.
Yeah, so the project that Jess is talking about was an 87-unit apartment complex, which would be perfect for our community. It would really start to fill that void that we have in apartment homes. But again, as Jess indicated, the folks in the neighboring neighborhood didn't want it built in their neighborhood. Understandably so. I mean, change is hard. Change is just a difficult thing, no matter what occurs. But that was a project that we were able to identify, or that was able to be identified by local citizens. So it took that. We've been working for many, many years to be able to try and attract somebody, whether it be a developer, a builder, banks, all of them together, just to help build something for us. And we were not successful. And then what it took was a local citizen that's a business owner that's been here for 30 plus years to say, okay, we'll do it. And we'll come forward with a project. I believe that they're still focused on doing something within our community. I think they're going back to the drawing board. The item that came before the council was to approve that unit. They weren't asking for a height variance. They were asking for a variance on the minimum density. So currently on multifamily multifamily zoning, you can have 20 dwelling units per acre. They were wanting to increase that so they could get to that number. Then they were also looking for a variance on the right of way. And so those were the only two variances they were looking for. The council did not approve it, but we did not disapprove it. Again, they're going to go back to the drawing board and take a look because that is an ideal project that would help solve what some of these issues are for us. Just another quick point on housing, because we do have a lot of folks that say we just don't need any more. We don't need anyone else to move here. We're full of the seams, and that's just not what has to happen, which I understand that point, but these apartment homes are going to be housing people that already live here. These will be people that are staying on somebody's couch, or might be renting a bedroom, or might still be living with their parents, or might be in a situation where they are sharing a home with 7 or 8 other people, and they're willing to now go out and afford a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment for them and their families. So it's just moving people about the community. And when that occurs, it also then will free up whatever dwelling unit they're in now for someone else to go into. So it'll be able to help solve what we have for this issue. And I also hear from folks sometimes that, why is the city even involved? This isn't really the city's issue. Why are they doing that? But it does become our issue, because when I engage with our citizens in forums like we are doing here this morning, we have people say, I went to the hospital, I couldn't be seen, and I went to the grocery store and I had to wait in a really long line, or I had to wait through 3 or 4 traffic lights to get through to get to my destination, which are all real problems to each of you. And I'm here to serve and help solve those. And the way that we can do that is by ensuring that we have proper folks in our community that can work in these industries to help service the needs of our citizens across the entire gamut. So we're one partner of many partners that need to make this happen. We won't be building housing. We're not buying land. We're not being landlords, but we are a good partner that can help make some things happen on this front, and we'll continue to work in that area using the guidance that we have from the study. The study did have several recommendations that came out of it. We've already initiated several of them prior to the study even coming out, so that's fantastic. It shows we're in the right direction. And then the others would be, we would be in a support role supporting other partners to be able to do their part of it. So if anyone's listening or wants to be involved in this type of development in our communities, come see us. We'd love to have some conversations, or see James down at the Partnership for Economic Development, who is taking the lead on some of these efforts for us. Let's dovetail right into water. So water is obviously top of mind for 2 reasons. One, we're getting a whole bunch of it from the sky right now. And 2, there seems to be not enough of it for us to use for drinking water. So there's not a whole lot of updates, except we are having a really fantastic winter, which that's really what impacts the entire flow of the Colorado River water is up in Colorado. It's the snowpack. We always want rain and pray for rain in this area, but it doesn't do a whole lot for our true water needs. Really, the snowpack up in Colorado does for us. And then what's happening over in California helps them not get as thirsty for our water, because they have enough water coming from the Sierras on their side. But there are lots of different things that are going on the waterfront. The biggest area we are right now is when we're monitoring the flows for what this is going to do for the winter. Although we've had a really fantastic winter so far, one, it's not over. And two, the hydrologists say we need about 5 or 6 of these types of winters in a row to really solve the drought issue if we were going to try and solve it just by geology and hydrology. So, but since we last met at the beginning of February, the city was one of the lead cities, along with many of the cities along up and down the river, to file an amicus brief with the court, showing our displeasure and our opposition to water transfers off of the main stem, specifically the Greenstone transfer out of Cibola over to the city of Queen Creek. So that's been filed. There is a hearing on that next week in federal court that we'll go to as well to share our opposition to that. We think it's a bad precedent to be able to move water off of the river, especially during a time of drought. We don't have enough water in the river for what's already been allocated out, although that's been done through decrees and law and contracts. It's very complicated, but we need to stay really focused to ensure that the 40 million users of the Colorado River water system have the water entitlements that they've paid for and are expecting. So I don't know if there's any other updates just on your end on water, but that's kind of what we've been doing the last 30 days.
Yeah, no, a lot happening and with a lot of detail. I guess maybe just to take a big step back and just talk about kind of the bigger situation. One, we're talking about lake levels in Meade and Powell and what that means. We talk about from a city's perspective is we have the right to serve our existing population and double in terms of what we have on paper. But you have a lot of valley communities that are growing, that are older than Lake Havasu City, that have had the chance to build out and plan for their futures and grow. And they were exceeding their allocations, and then they looked to Mojave County because we've done a good job in terms of water conservation and our water portfolio. And then they want to buy that and take that and bring it back into the valley. So that's what you're speaking of, right? We don't want to take the water rights that exist in Mojave County and send them down to the valley or the Phoenix area because we will need them in the future. So hands off, go figure your stuff out. We're fine up here, and that's the effort that you're leading on behalf of Lake Havasu City.
Yes, and it's really important. Lake Havasu City only has the opportunity for Colorado River water. The other cities do have some groundwater opportunities. They have other avenues for water that we don't have. So we have to be very steadfast in this. And the fight's just beginning when it comes to water. And so we'll continue to be mindful of that. We'll continue to stay focused on it and ensure that all of the planning that Lake Havasu City has done for the last several decades stays intact, so that we can continue to grow into what our usage is going to be. On the waterfront, we also are talking about the rates and what we charge for water delivery to our users. In this case, their users. We have a nonprofit enterprise fund for water and wastewater. So this is basically your water bill that you get each month that pays for the services to deliver that water or take away the wastewater from your home. And how do we charge for those types of services? Just this year, so all of your property tax bills went down because the IDD expired. But with that expiration and the lowering of your property tax, also went $5.7 million from the irrigation and drainage district that helped fund our water fund. So with that going away, we had to identify what a new rate structure would look like to be able to ensure that we can still deliver quality water and wastewater services to all of our ratepayers. By doing that, we put in a new rate structure, and we quickly realized that it was causing pain points for multifamily housing unit owners and renters in those areas. And it wasn't sustainable for those associations, so the council quickly reacted to that, and we changed the rate structure in October of 21. And we wanted to give one full year of data because we do have, as Jess mentioned earlier on the housing side, we have flexibility and seasonality built into the way people use their homes in our community. So in the winter, we have obviously high usage of homes. And in the summer, we have high usage. And then some of our shoulder seasons, we have low usage. So we'll take a full year of data of how that water is used, how it's used with the new rate structure. And then we're able to see, okay, how is this going to go and what's the most equitable way to structure a rate plan for our rate users that allow us to be able to take care of all of our capital improvements. So, make the infrastructure, make sure that it's good, we can deliver it, and also pay for the maintenance and operation of the system and ensure that we don't have critical failures within the system. So how do you do all of those components together on some sort of a rate structure? We've now gone through 1 year of data, so that happened at the end of October of 22. Justin and his team went out and brought forth a company that is going to analyze our capital improvement needs. So they take a very wide look. The city council adopts a 5-year CIP plan, so capital improvement plan, but they're taking a look at 10 years out. So we can really have a good forecast of what we'll need from an infrastructure need so that no future ratepayer is surprised by some sort of an infrastructure need that's going to arise. We already know and have it pre-programmed into the rates and into the plan so that we can ensure that we're always delivering quality service to all of our ratepayers. They're now coming forth, and they'll be at our next council meeting on soon.
Tuesday?
Is it Tuesday already? Yeah.
Or a week from, is it the 14th, I guess? A week from Tuesday.
Yeah, a week from Tuesday, they'll be coming forward at our next council meeting to give one of the first presentation that we'll have to have the discussion during a public hearing. We invite all ratepayers, all citizens and property owners to join us during that, but it's a process that takes some time because we want to ensure that we are meeting the needs of the system, meeting the needs of the ratepayers, and being fair across all users. So just, I know you and your team are actively involved on a daily basis trying to put all this together.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think that, in the end, from the city's perspective, certainly from my perspective, what things that make me feel good about things that are happening in the city are where we have a plan in place. And we have some surety that things are going to go a certain way, and we're going to provide our services to our residents that are seamless and frankly, without thought from the residents' perspective. And I don't feel great about our water and sewer system for the course of the next many years. And staff shares that sentiment. Council shares that sentiment. We need to take a look at it. So this is the process where at the end of the day, we can feel really good about the fact that we're set up and established that water and sewer, our infrastructure systems are going to be are in place, and we have a plan in place. You indicated that a 10-year plan, and that's really what we're doing with right now. Thanks to Jill Olson, thanks to Anthony Kozlowski for all their efforts in leading this effort. And then our public works team, led by Greg Frostley, right now we're identifying 10 years worth of projects for water, 10 years worth of projects for sewer. So how many miles of water pipe, water main should we replace every year? So we put that in there. Or there's going to be a need for us to improve this plant over the course of in year 8 and year 7, and how those things might look at. So in the end, we're going to have some really big spreadsheets that show us that what it's going to take to operate this, to maintain it, to have the proper replacement of pipe and key systems, pumps and all the rest for that system. And that's really where it starts. So that is the first step in terms of what are the rates for Lake Havasu City. It's a non-profit system. So the money that we need to operate the system, we collect that and that alone, and we're done, and we move on. And ensure that the system's going to work properly. So 10 years worth of projects, capital projects in the water. We add up all those numbers. There's a whole lot more math tied to this, but a very simplistic approach is we add up all those numbers, and then we are able to identify based on usage how those funds would come in, and then we can properly maintain that system. Again, a nonprofit system that we can feel good about. We're not going to run into issues that that we hear about right across the river, right, in California. I mean, they're still struggling with the potable water and getting all those. That's the worst case scenario. We're nowhere near anything along those lines, but I don't want to think about those types of things. So that's what we're trying to do is set it up so we can be confident that our systems is going to be good for today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now.
Yeah, when Jess talks about finding projects within the next 10 years, well, we're not finding projects to be able to spend money.
No.
We're trying to do preventative maintenance. So how does that impact all of you? If you've driven on Lake Havasu Avenue from Acoma to Kiowa, that's how that impacts us. So yeah, we had a water main break over in that area several months ago, actually almost last spring, almost a year ago. Yeah. And that would not have occurred if we had some preventative maintenance put into place, which that one was on our preventative maintenance schedule. We just didn't get to it. We were like 3 months too late in our scheduling to get that done. But that's how that impacts you. So we want to make sure that we have a full look at that. Now, the other component to this is that we are deficit spending right now. So the rate structure we have in place, the council knows and we all understand that we are spending into our fund balance. So we already are in a deficit in the rate structure. And we did that because we wanted to have that 1 year of seasonality built into the system. And we lost that $5.7 million from the expiration of the IDD. So if you read that in the news in the future or read it in the past, we know that, we recognize it, but we can't continue to do that. So we have to do something meaningful on the rate structure. The other thing from my perspective is I would like to see conservation as part of the rate structure. And we know that works. For those of us that have lived here a long time, you may recall the winter quarterly averaging process we did. Very complicated, but it really impacted people's behaviors on the way that they used water. To the point we joke, but it's the truth, is people would go and shower at the gym and not shower at home so they could save their water bill for the future. So we don't want to go that extreme, obviously, but I do think conservation should be a component for all users to ensure that we're doing everything on our front to protect the Colorado River water resources. So all of those conversations will be happening, the most recent one at our next council meeting, but there will be several public hearings as we go through this process before we adopt a new rate structure with an eye on having it go into effect July 1st. Those are just goals. I mean, obviously the council has to weigh in and let us all know exactly what it is that we want to do in what direction. But July 1st is a good date because that's the beginning of our new fiscal year. But all that's still up in the air, but that's just from my perspective on that. Next item that we want to talk about, since last time we met, we talked that we were going to be filing an application with the Arizona Department of Health Services to go in partnership for a certificate of necessity, or a C of N, to allow us to run ambulance services in Lake Havasu City. We have now since done that at our council meeting on February 14th. Council unanimously adopted the resolution to give Justin his team, Fire Chief Palafis, to be able to file that application. The very next day, Chief Palafis got in his car and with his team.
He left at 6 a.m. and drove down to Phoenix to deliver the application.
Yeah,
That's how passionate he is for Havasu.
Yeah, he's waiting at the doorstep when the door wasn't even unlocked by the time he got there. But but he was surprised. They spent about an hour with him going over the application. He didn't anticipate that at all. He really just wanted to hand deliver and get the stamp that said it was received. But they actually went over it and they applauded him and the department for their innovation and collaboration with the current C of N holder. So what all of this means is if you have the C of N or the certificate of necessity, you basically have control of all of the ambulance services in this area. The reason that's done is to ensure that you have ambulance services in your area. Otherwise, they wouldn't come to rural areas. They would just stay where there's lots of opportunity for them to do transports in urban areas. And so the one that we have with River Medical is 8,600 square miles?
I think 8,500 square miles.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes, is it Sligman? Is that what it is? That the city,
Yes.
that it goes as far, that's how far out it goes, or nearly to that.
Yeah, then all the way down the river as well. So
We're at Lake Havasu City, we're about 46 square miles. They cover 8,500 square miles, to put that in perspective.
With their C event. So like if there is a catastrophe, they move their assets up and down kind of their system. And so right now we have no redundancy in our ambulance services. So if they were all taken for some reason and a citizen needs to call 911 and needs to be transported somewhere, it might take longer than maybe it should, or it's just that there is no redundancy. It's been that way forever. I mean, for 50 some years that we've been a community. But as we're growing, we've seen this need. And again, through Chief Palafis' leadership, identified solutions on how we could solve this. So what the application does is it allows us to run 2 ambulances. The entire program is going to be patient-centered, so it's going to be completely focused on the patient and getting a patient to the facility as quick as possible. So it's not going to be on a rotation where, AMR, River Medical gets one and then we get one and then they get one and we get one. It's going to be wherever the nearest unit is to the person that needs it, we'll roll up on that area. That'll ensure that we have at least 2 additional ambulances in our community to get people around. Lake Havasu City Fire will not be doing inter-facility transfers. So if you have a knee replacement or you have a hip replacement and you need to move from the hospital to maybe a skilled nursing center for rehab, we will not be doing that. That would still be a River Medical or an AMR transport. We will only pick up patients that are in emergent situations that need to go to our local hospital, and that would be our complete involvement. And with this C of N, we'll be able to bill insurance to be able to recoup the cost of delivering that service to our citizens. So it would be hopefully cost neutral on the staff that we need to hire and the additional equipment, and possibly even provide some small additional funds to do other enhancements in our EMS system. So that is now in the process, and I'm not sure how long we are expecting health services to take.
Yeah, and I think that's, I just want to put that asterisk on everything here too. So we submitted an application. So the process takes place, and we're hoping that we can get to a spot where the state would approve our ability to do exactly what you described. This could be a 3 or 4 month process. It could take much longer. A lot of cities that are in a situation where we need better transport. I think that for AMR, and we're in partnership with AMR. We support AMR. They're doing the best they can with the resources that they have. But the state requirement for them is their average response time, not the max, but the average response time to meet the state guidelines is 17 minutes. 17 minutes for an ambulance to come to your house. That's the guidelines. And so we're saying that's not good enough. We need to find a way to decrease that, and we need to get on scene, and we need to transport you to where you need to go. So other cities in a situation like this too, they haven't entered into a partnership with it's a private sector ambulance company. They go through a court process that could take like 3-4 years, and talking to some of my colleagues in other city managers, that's $2-3 million in attorney fees and 2-3-4 years. It takes just to basically force them out and take over the certificate of necessity. Our approach would be much quicker because we're working with River Medical, and it's the first partnership of its kind in Arizona. So we're very proud about that. Special thanks to Chief Palafis, Division Chief Jason Stello, and Battalion Chief Tim Maple for all the work that they've done to get us to this point. We talk about like it's got to be the closest ambulance that picks up the patient, and everybody goes, well, duh. Of course it is. That's not how things work across the state or across the country. When you have for-profit ambulance companies that are transporting you to the hospital or wherever you need to go, a lot of times those decisions are made based on profit, not based on minimizing times and transport times and whatever else too. Down in the valley, there's. You hear stories about where like you get picked up as a patient and we're going to take you to a hospital. But if the ambulance company takes you to one hospital, they get paid X amount of dollars. They take you to another one that's maybe 2 miles a little further down the road. They get an extra $1,000. Well, guess which hospital you're going to go to. So we're trying to take all of that out of the formula here in Lake Havasu City, and we keep saying it because we keep hammering it, and we'll have an agreement with River Medical. The closest transport will go to that call, and we want to ensure that we're getting top-notch service. And we think, based on the fire study and the leadership in the fire department, that we can do all of this. We can put more ambulances on the street and reduce response times with no additional cost to our taxpayers. So we feel very, very good about that.
So we'll keep you posted on how it goes through the process. Right now, the Department of Health Services does not have a department director yet. That's been confirmed by the Senate. Governor Hobbs made an announcement or made a selection of one. She didn't make through the appointment, pulled her name from consideration, and so now they're going back to find a new candidate. So hopefully that doesn't impact our process at all. Hopefully the structure within the department can still keep everything going. But we'll keep you posted on how that moves forward. Also in the public safety sector, we're getting ready to have a discussion on a future council agenda item for rehabbing an additional fire engine. So this was the brainchild of, again, Chief Palafis and his department. To buy a new fire engine is really, 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 really expensive, and it's gotten so crazy expensive over the last several years.
$1.1 million right now.
Yeah. And what did they used to be before? It was like $350 or something?
Well, no, I mean, you could get, the ladders used to be $1 million. Those are the big ladders, and that was the big expensive ones. Now we're talking about just the engines. It's well over $1 million. You could buy an engine for just like, I don't know, a couple of years ago for 600, for our $600,000 to $700,000. Give or take for a brand new engine. And it takes like 2 years after you buy it. It takes 2 years for them to deliver it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It didn't used to always be that way, but that's what we're dealing with now.
Yeah.
And so we purchased a whole fleet in 2014. Everyone was high-fiving, all excited to get this new fleet in 14. Now, in hindsight, really, really bad move because now all of the units are going down at the exact same time, and we'd have to come up with all that money to try and replace them all at the same time. But we've been able to augment through, again, Chief Palafis and his team. They've come up with a solution to rehab our old units. So actually go through and it comes back brand new. And we've already done one, and the department's very happy with that rehab. It actually was here several months ago at the beginning of one of our council meetings for the citizens to take a look at council to see all of the changes that occurred within that unit. And we'll be having the discussion to do another one. So the plan is we'd augment new purchases for engines and rehabs and refurbishes, and kind of on a rotating basis, so we don't have one huge capital outlay expense at one time, but over a period of several years, we'll be able to get new rigs or rehabbed rigs and continue on some sort of a cycle so that it's not such a big hit each year. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts on the rehab of the unit.
So you take an old fire engine, right, and you basically remove all the moving parts. You keep the chassis, you keep the cab, and then you replace it with anything that's mechanical, electrical, all gets replaced. We can do that for a little under $400,000 as opposed to $1.1 million. So the warranty is, I think it's 10 years, which is a really good plan. It's kind of a new approach for us, so we don't want to do that to all of our engines, but we'll rehab one and then purchase one, and then and then over the course of time try to replace our existing equipment. So we're in a good spot.
Yeah, the other item that has happened since last time we met last month was the Community Resource Coalition made their final recommendations to the City Council, actually just this week. So the Community Resource Coalition was a board that was set up by the council last year, April of 2022. And their entire focus was to come up with a plan, a process, an application, a review process, and a rubric to determine who should get funding that the City Council allocated for social services. So the City Council back in April of last year received ARPA dollars, America Rescue Plan dollars from the federal government. Each community across the United States was given an allocation of money that had pathways in which the money had to be spent. And so had to be spent at this time, take ourselves back to March of 2022, had to be spent on social services and or infrastructure projects with different requirements for each one, with different reporting requirements for each one. That's since changed, but at the time, that's the mind frame we were in. It was a very lengthy, nearly 500-page document on how they had to be spent, how you had to report for the funds, how you had to do all of these components. And so we elected at that time to take up to $1 million over to give for social services, and then the remaining approximately $7 million would go into critical infrastructure needs that we have within our community. Kind of a rough layout of what those monies would look like. So the $1 million that we allocated, this board then was set to again create a process that we've never done before. So we don't really do grants. That's not what the local government does. It's not within our purview. We really don't have that ability. So they had to create something, and they had to make sure that it followed all of the federal guidelines and that we were able to be in compliance with how those monies were supposed to be used. They did a fantastic job. So this board was amazing. There was 5 members and 2 alternates, and they went through and were able to create such an amazing process that was easy to follow. Some of the nonprofits thought it was a little bit lengthy, and after reading the stack of applications like that, it was a little bit lengthy, but it was all meaningful work. And so this was a unique opportunity at the time, again, April of last year, when the council created this board by resolution. It was a unique opportunity to say, here are some dollars set aside to be used for anything when it came to housing, adult senior care, child care, food, and social service needs. It was very specific within those areas, and that was all we said. We didn't give any other parameters. You didn't have to be a nonprofit. You didn't have to, it had to be sustainable as well. It had to be sustainable and within Lake Havasu City. Those are the other two components. But it was just a blank canvas of what could happen. We didn't know what would come forward. The application deadline was, I believe, December 9th of 22, so just a couple of months ago. And I think on December 8th, we might have had like 5 applications. And then on the final day, it went up to 19 applications is what we finally received. The commission or the board went through and identified by rubric the top 10 folks on the services that they'd be providing and really worked diligently to see how they could use those monies. They had all of the top 7 actually go back and ask, hey, if we cut your budget by 20%, could you still fulfill the program of work that you're saying that you're going to do? And they all went back. They did that. They had to revise some of their areas, but then it allowed them to expand and give money to the top 11 people by recommendation. That recommendation, again, came before council on Tuesday, and it did pass by council. And at that same time, then the Community Resource Coalition expired. That was how the resolution was originally built. But with that $1 million across all sectors, it really is impactful for a lot of different things. So domestic violence, abuse shelters had some funding, behavioral health had some funding, child care centers, the opportunity for 5 child care centers to be brought up to compliance and expand offerings was included in some of that. A resource center was part of it. And then some funding for community health personnel to be able to really get to the root cause of what causes some of these areas for citizens that find themselves in need of social services, and how can those organizations collaborate together to try and give those citizens a hand up as they go through the process. So that was the conversation that we had. It's now moved forward. Again, it was a unique opportunity. This isn't something that we would do again, or that is really what we have. But because of the way that the ARPA dollars were structured, it just kind of created this window to be able to do something. And that's what the council elected to do with those funds. The remaining of those funds you'll see identified in the forthcoming CIP budget. Justin and his team will be identifying where those funds are going. Some of them have already been spent on current things. But again, the way that money came and the strings that, I say strings, but it's just the requirements. They're not really strings. We can spend the money on those particular tranches that are pathways that were outlined in the legislation. But we weren't so certain how to report that in the budget process last year because it was coming in all at the same time that those were happening. But now Justin and his team have the ability to identify that coming forward.
Very simple. Yeah.
Yes.
Lots of strings attached when dollars come from DC.
Yes. Yeah. And at first that 500 pages that then all those requirements just went away. It didn't go away, but changed throughout the process. And so it's a different landscape today than it was back then. But also as part of that conversation, a companion item was requested to maybe continue the Community Resource Coalition and have a discussion of what that would be. We had that discussion on Tuesday, and during that discussion, although the item was to continue the Community Resource Coalition, that wasn't really what the intent was necessarily. No one on council had the intent to continue to have a grant program or the intent to continue to give money to nonprofits. And so there really wasn't any action needed from the council, but there was discussion and direction given to Jess and his team to work in concert with the social service areas to have a task force, if you will, that would have some city staff members present at the task force during weekly, monthly, quarterly meetings of different nonprofits. It'd be very similar to the Community Resource Coalition that we started several years ago, where we get together, but that's about 100 different organizations come together, and we meet twice a year. And sometimes that's too many voices in one room. And so I think as it goes forward, we'll maybe have a key number of players that are decided by the players in that room, which the city's just one of the players. So we'll kind of just see how organically that creates an opportunity to keep conversation going. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll get something moving. I believe Debbie Pennington from United Way is kind of leading the effort of who's going to be at the meeting. And I believe there's an article in the paper this week that identified that she's gathering names and emails to be able to invite folks that are interested. So if that happens to be any of you, please reach out to Debbie Pennington at United Way to get her your information so you can be included in the first meeting that occurs and see if that's right for you and your organization or for whatever passion point that you might have on that front.
Good things can happen through conversations with similar agencies. And so we have our nonprofits and the charitable organizations that do wonderful things for our residents in a time of need. Here in Havasu, but we have so many, and they're largely disconnected. There is no venue for them to come together and share their stories or pool their resources. So you might have 3 or 4 different nonprofits or charitable organizations in Havasu that are doing providing a similar service. Well, why don't you get together and find out a way to maximize that effort and maybe reduce some costs and so forth. So I'm looking forward to maybe some of those things to happen through the continuation of the efforts that you started a few years ago, Mayor. And from the city's perspective, we're there to support our nonprofits here in Havasu and go do some good things. And we'll do our best to help them do that.
Yeah, we know that through the larger Community Resource Coalition, we know it works. I think I've shared with this group before. It's one of the only public forums that we go to. And after the official meeting or gathering, people come up to me and have questions and want to talk, and which I love. But that's the only group that I go to that after the meeting, no one comes up to me. They immediately run up to each other and they're like, "Oh, I heard you say this, and we do this," and I'm like, "Oh, that is so magical. What was occurring?" Of course, I stay just in case eventually they want to say anything. But that it's working because they're so excited to go talk to another agency that might have some sort of similarity or a collaboration opportunity for them, that it works out well. So we'll see, as Jess said, what's to come on that. But we also had, since last time we met, we had the ribbon cutting for our pickleball courts. So we had the pickleball court expansion over at Dick Samp Park. And it's an amazing facility, and there are so many pickleball enthusiasts in our community. If you're not one of them and you want to see what all of the excitement's about, I invite you to go out there because they'll get you hooked real quick, which is their level of excitement and energy that they have out there. But the pickleball courts at Dick Samp Park are highly, highly used. And so the unique thing about the pickleball courts and the expansion of that area is it was all done by a donation of a local gentleman here in our community. And the pickleball courts, during the unveiling, we named them the Mike Delaney pickleball courts at Dick Samp Park in honor of his generous contribution. I think it was nearly $500,000.
Almost $500,000 he donated for the construction of the pickleball courts out there.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. So sometimes in the newspaper or on Orchids and Onions, we hear we don't need pickleball courts, we need this or we need that. And I don't know if I disagree with you if we need that or not, but we're not turning down money from somebody that's willing to invest in our parks. Mm-hmm. And if you go out there and see how busy those courts are, all of them now, you would see what that need is. And we stand ready to partner with anyone. If there's another organization that has a passion that could be used to enhance our park and wants to contribute monies towards that, we're all ears, and we would love to do that. That's really how many of our park amenities have been built. The skate park was a partnership. Rotary Community Park was a partnership. Realtor Park was a partnership. I mean, just you go throughout our whole inventory of our park systems, and they were partnerships or collaborations with others. So very exciting. But I do invite you to go out there and check out all the great enhancements that are there.
Mayor, I'm not sure if you realize that we're in the presence of a very high-skilled pickleball athlete in the room. Chief Sterling over there, as he smiles in the background.
He caught the bug a couple years ago, right?
A couple years ago.
Yes.
Last year, he finished did you win the Triple Crown last year? Is that the 3? They did tournaments for singles, doubles, and one other event. He took first place in all 3. This year did a silver and a bronze. So he wasn't. He's getting a little older, so he's declining in his ability.
Dick Samp Park is over on the north side of town. It's off of Avalon. So on the north end of our community, there's also the Little League has fields out there as well, which was another partnership actually for that area. So the a couple of other things since last time we met. We talked about our planning session that we had at the end of January, early February. During that planning session, we did something just a little bit different. We generally have council input, council thoughts towards the end of the day. Our council planning session is a full day and a quarter, I'll call it. So it starts with a dinner and then goes into the next day, full day of programming. And at the very end of that, we would have council thoughts. And by the time we got there, the council didn't have many thoughts left. So they're really spent. And that was for several years. And so we thought, all right, let's change that process up a little bit. Let's see if we can do something different. So we moved it to the front side of the meeting. So we started our planning session with a budget overview from Ms. Olson, our admin services director, to kind of just let us know kind of the lay of the land, where we're at from a financial perspective going into the current budget year, and what those things look like. And then we went into council priorities. And we kind of did like a round robin session, something just different, where each council member was able to bring forth one item that they wanted to discuss. They were able to kind of pitch their idea for a few minutes. Then council had a few minutes to come to consensus if we wanted to move that item forward to a future agenda item or not. And then we would move on to the next item. So several items through that process came forward during the session. Some didn't make it through consensus at that level, so they aren't coming forward. But on our last council meeting that happened on Tuesday, we had a discussion about how do you get things on the agenda and what time the meetings should start. And those, again, started from that planning session. The thought on the time of the meeting was that our meeting started at 6 p.m. From a council perspective, we're elected to do that. We're here. We're willing to stay all through the night. But there's a whole lot more people that have to come to council meetings or be involved in that process than just the 7 elected council members. We have staff that starts their morning at 7 or 8 that's then with us all night long with no break. We also have students that go to the high school. That is part of their civics requirement. They're required to attend council meetings. And then we, of course, have citizens and businesses that have to do business with the council. So whether they have a zoning issue or they need a liquor license or they want a variance so that they can build a pool on their lot or whatever it might be. And so the meetings, they go pretty late, sometimes 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And it just gets to be a long night for our citizens. So we had a discussion about moving it up. I was a fan of keeping them still after the traditional workday. I absolutely realize not everyone has a 9 to 5, but the traditional workday, and council agreed with that, and we elected to move the start time to our meetings to 5:30. So going forward, after it's done through the process,
but in about 6 weeks, the time will change. But for now, it's still 6 o'clock.
Yeah, still 6 o'clock. So if you're coming in March and April, come see us at 6 o'clock on the second and fourth Tuesday. But as Jess said, in about 6 weeks, it'll go to 5:30 will be the start time for our council meetings. And hopefully that is more efficient for all those that use the services that have to come before the city council. We also had a discussion on how do we get things on the agenda. Currently, there's several ways to get things on the agenda. There's a process in which you can work through my office to get things on the agenda as a council member or as a citizen. There's opportunities through the city clerk's office for a citizen. And then there's an opportunity for council members through the end of the council meeting. There's a future discussion item on the agenda, and they can go through that process. So there's multiple ways to do that. The one that seems to get the most focus is the one at the meeting. So how do you get things on the agenda that way? This is one of the items that came forward during the conversation at the planning session, and not all of the council members liked the process. And so some of the discussion was that currently a council member at the end of the meeting during that future discussion item says, I want to talk about so-and-so. They have to get a second. They have to get one other council member to say, yes, I think we should have a conversation about that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that item is even within the jurisdiction of our community. So it could go on the agenda, and it's something that then is set forth that citizens think we're going to talk about and potentially solve that we might not have the ability to solve because it might not be our problem to solve, but we still are going to have the discussion. So some council members at the planning session, again, I'm giving you like this brief synopsis of like a 2-minute conversation that we're trying to even see if it should move forward. And so how should we do that? Because anything that comes before the council, if you want it to pass, you have to have 4 votes. I mean, out of a 7-member board, you have to have 4 votes to pass anything. So is it appropriate to have just 2 council members bring something onto an agenda that might not even be in the jurisdiction or that isn't going to be able to move forward because you don't necessarily have any other votes? And so that was kind of the discussion we had. I think there was some confusion on what the discussion was with the public. I think some council members might have been confused on what we were talking about and not understanding that there's multiple ways to get things on the agenda. When I first became mayor, we changed this process to make it easier for people to get things on the agenda. So we come from a heart of wanting to make it easy for people to do business with the city and be able to have open communication. But I think some of that might have been lost, especially because it wasn't even my item that was coming forward. I know I was getting a lot of the push for it because it says the mayor controls the agenda, which is true. The code says that the mayor controls the agenda, but I have to follow the code, and the code says that these items are ways that things can get on the agenda. So I think there was some confusion on all of that, but that was a discussion that we had as well. So if you're hearing anything on social media, or you're talking with your friends or groups or organizations, that's where it was at. No one was trying to do anything other than just is it the right way to do it? Is it efficient? Is it what the council wants? So we had that introduction on Tuesday. That will come for final adoption at our next meeting. So that'll stay in the process as we go through. You don't have any thoughts on that? Or?
No, I mean, in the end, council needs to formulate the rules and how to conduct business, how to work to better the community, and part of that process is how items appear on the agenda, right? So that I think it's an important conversation for council to have. To make sure that what's reflected in the community is reflected on the council, and if things want to advance, a lot of times there are conversations that occur with staff or otherwise, and sometimes it takes action from council to move forward in one direction or another. So it's just really good to have the rules in place and everybody understands them and be able to abide by them.
Yeah, and it's important if anyone follows us really closely. So I know a lot of you're all engaged and in the process. Many of you come to our council meetings, but I'm not sure if you actually read the council communications on the agenda before. There's generally a staff member that the communication's coming from. So it might be coming from Jess, or it might be coming from our city attorney, or the division department head that is responsible for that area. And it's a memo or a communication to the council from that person. So it might appear that they're putting that on the agenda. I would say 90 to 95% of everything on the agenda is put on the agenda because it's in city code that was adopted by council for them to do that. So they're just providing the background information based on the code that your elected leaders adopted to be able to move that forward. So it's not necessarily their item.
For example, we talked about the fire engine a few topics back, right? So that fire engine, the need for that fire engine and the dollars for that fire engine were adopted by council through the big budget process where we adopt the entire budget. Well, that doesn't mean automatically that as a city staff that we go out and buy that engine without checking with council or getting approvals from council. So just because it's in the budget, that allows us to then bring it back to council at a later time when we're ready for that purchase to take place. But that's not a council member or the mayor saying put that item on the agenda. 95, 99% of all the items are part of that process, right? Now's the time we're prepared to advance that ball forward. So that's an example of that. So. Equipment, we have applications for zoning or otherwise that are triggered by the resident or the applicant. So those items will appear on the agenda. It doesn't take an action from the council for that to appear. But so we're talking about very specific and special topics and issues that would come from council through this process. But it's still very, very important to identify.
Yeah, which is a really small piece of what that is. So So we'll continue to do it when we say that the mayor controls the agenda. Usually, what that means is that if it's a zoning issue that we know has generated a lot of discussion in the community, that'll probably be at the front end of the agenda, so that the citizens that want to engage in that process can do it in an expedient way and not wait till the end of the meeting. So that's where we kind of adjust based on what we think the community engagement process is going to be, so that it's most efficient for the citizen throughout that process. So, those are the discussions. So when you're talking to your neighbors or your friends and you're like, oh, I heard they're trying to do this, or that's what it is that the conversation was about. That's where it was generated from, and that's how we got to where we're at now. We're also in the legislative session, so we're down in the state capitol. They're working at a rapid pace to hear bills and get laws changed or passed. I've told this group many, many times, most of the time in the legislative session, we spend about 90% of our time on defense, like, don't do that to us. We don't want that to happen. This year is no different. But we do have some priority bills that we are working through. One is the continuation of the SLIF funds, which is the State Lake Improvement Fund, which is a portion of the gas taxes that are used at the pump that go to watercraft. And those monies traditionally would always come back to water-based communities throughout the state of Arizona for development. One of the easiest ways to describe it is if you're a lake user or have ever been on Lake Havasu, and you look to the Arizona side, you'll see how developed we are. We have campsites and we have bathroom facilities and trash facilities. If you look on the California side, you see none of that. There's no development whatsoever. Those were all SLIF funds that were used to do that. Representative Biasucci, our representative, has led the way on SLIF dollars. He was very successful a couple of years ago to get put back into the state budget for a short period. And now he's looking for the renewal now. So
permanent.
Yes. And so we have some really cool projects. I don't know if you want to talk about some of the projects that we're working on right now with SLIF dollars.
Thank you, Representative Leo Biasucci, for what he did. That was something that was in place years ago, back in the 2010 timeframe or so, was pulled from the budget. Again, this is the taxes you pay for watercraft, right? They right now they go back into the budget, and it gets distributed for roads. Well, some of that fuel was used on the water, so we should be able to use a portion of those funds to improve the amenities that are on the water. You look back in previous years, you look at the seawalls and the channel and all the beautification that took place back then. A large part of that was through SLIF funds. The first year we got back, we were able to purchase, haven't received them yet, but we were able to purchase a boat for police and a boat for fire. Chief was about 20 years old, was the police boat, give or take, yeah. And so, I mean, a need for us. And then the second year we applied and we're advancing the ball forward for redoing the launch ramp over at Site 6. So we identified that as a key need. But if we can get those types of funds every single year, we can start talking about different amenities that are touching the water, improvements in the channel, beautification, through in our parks and shorelines, those types of things too. So that would be a very big deal for us. It looks like, thanks to Representative Biasucci, that bill is advancing. So we're very optimistic, but cautiously so, on how that ends up.
We also have a bill through RTAC, which is the Rural Transportation Advocacy Group, or Council, and they are working on a bill for Greater Arizona for road improvements. Lake Havasu City has about $10 million of road improvements identified in that bill, and that's actually starting to make its way through the process too, which is very exciting. And then we have some additional conversations on short-term rentals. The Representative Bliss out of District 1 up in the Prescott area is running a bill, but her bill is being heavily supported by Representative Biasucci and Representative Gillette from our district, as well as Senator Borelli in the Senate are helping to advance that as well, for us to be able to have some additional tools. I know we seem to be talking about additional tools for short-term rentals every legislative session, but really at the end of the day, we just want local control. It worked so great here for years and years and years until the state decided to take it over. We've had short-term rentals in Lake Havasu since the 70s. I mean, that's always been a thing, and we're not looking to get rid of it. We just want to do it our way and not the way that we're told to do it, and be able to have everyone have their private property rights. So I was actually fortunate enough yesterday to go down to the Capitol and have a meeting with the Speaker of the House, Representative Bliss and Representative Biasucci, along with the City of Sedona to talk about this priority, which is such a welcome relief. We would never be able to get a conversation with the Speaker of the House about short-term rentals ever before. So even if it goes nowhere, at least they understand what it is that we're looking for, and we're so thankful for that opportunity from Mr. Speaker Bentoma to give us that time to be able to share the concerns that I hear from our citizens on this issue. So we'll see what can go through. But again, I can't say it enough. We have a rock star delegation from our district, led by Senator Borelli, Representative Biasucci, and Representative Gillette. He's a freshman, but he has got right into it, doing a fantastic job for us, and we're so grateful for their leadership and to have them representing us down at the state. A couple of last items before we're going to turn it over to you to answer any questions you may have. Yesterday we had a really special birthday. It was Dr. Seuss's birthday, and many of my colleagues on council, the chief, both chiefs actually, were joined us at various elementary schools throughout the community to read to children and really push the importance of reading and reading communications throughout our community. It's one of the more fun days being an elected official, is going into the classrooms and actually engaging with the future us's that are going to be doing this one day. So really exciting for us to do that. We also are working with several organizations within Lake Havasu City to do our annual city-wide cleanup on March 25th. If you are interested in participating, this is a waterway cleanup as well as land cleanup. You can check out our Facebook page. We're sharing all of the information, but it's March 25th, and we'll be throughout the entire community doing the cleanup. And then we also have Vietnam Veterans Day, which is on Wednesday, March 29th at Sarah Park Rodeo Grounds. It starts at 10:30 in the morning. It's a way to honor our Vietnam veterans and thank them for their service, but it's open to everyone and all veterans to join us. And there'll be a free lunch provided by the Elks Lodge. Thank you so much to the Elks Lodge for what they're doing on that behalf. And again, that's at the Sarah Park Rodeo Grounds on Wednesday, March 29th, starting at 10:30. Before we take your questions, I do want to introduce a few of my colleagues that are joining us today. We have Vice Mayor David Lane is with us. Thank you for being here. He also is the official mic passer-outer, so that whoever has a question, we are televised, so we do need to make sure anyone that's speaking is on a microphone, so those at home can hear what you're saying. We also have Councilmember Cameron Moses joining us. Thank you, Councilmember Moses. And with that, we'll go ahead and take questions. Vice Mayor Lane?
I'm standing right here, so we'll just do this one.
Yeah. Good morning. I'm president of the Lake Havasu Concert Association, and Bob Kettner's my name. And over the last 20 years, many nonprofits have been using the Performing Arts Center at the high school for free and just paying for the technician and the janitor. Well, every time we get a new school board, they want to raise rates or change rates. So this agreement was gone back 20 years, and it goes through Parks and Recs because Parks and Recs provides water for the city, for the schools. So over the time, we've had people 10 years ago who were involved in this, and now no one can find anything in writing. So what the school is looking for is something in writing from Parks and Recs or whoever, so that we can continue our operation because they want to charge $100 an hour for nonprofits. And many nonprofits cannot afford that. And it's a great venue. Our organization, along with help with other sources, has spent over $80,000 on the PAC, improving the music and the sound system and the lighting system. So they've agreed to give us credit for that. But it doesn't help the other organizations who are, especially the ballet, who needs to be at the PAC just for rehearsals. It's for $100 an hour. So this is and all their performers are students. And we provide students, if they want to come to our performances, they're allowed in free. So we need some help getting that involved with Parks and Rec. I've talked to various people, but nobody seems to have anything in writing. And what the school district is looking for is something in writing. So maybe you can give me some guidance as to help.
Yeah, so that issue, it's just important to delineate that the PAC is the school district, and they have it's a separate political subdivision with its own elected board. We don't really have any control, but we did look to see if we had anything in writing on that, and we don't have anything in writing either. So we reached out to Superintendent Stone, and she's willing to work with any of these nonprofit organizations to serve their unique situation. So in your case, it was credit for the investments that you made in the facility. I did speak to her about ballet as well, and I would recommend the ballet reach out to the district to have that conversation to see what they can have. I'm a big proponent of respecting the lines in which we have. I'm Lake Havasu City, and I'll take full responsibility for Lake Havasu City and the school district. They're elected by you, the citizens of Lake Havasu City, and they have to be in their area. So I'm not going to cross over my line, but I will help facilitate conversations, and I've done that in this case, and I'll continue to do that. That Parks and Rec agreement is a space use agreement that really is aimed at helping our after-school program. So we'd run an after-school program in the school facilities to do after-school childcare and programming. And I think that might have been crossover or a crossover at one time to do what it is that happened with your organizations. But I stand ready to be a partner to facilitate conversations.
Yes, Mayor and Manager. As far as getting things on the agenda, I wanted to ask, who determines whether something's within the jurisdiction of the city?
Usually the law. And so that's kind of what we determine. If it's, there's different layers of government. As I just mentioned with Bob's item, I like to stay in my lane. And generally, city municipal functions have functions in which they're to provide. County has functions in which they're to provide, state and federal. So generally the law is what determines that.
Mm-hmm. Good morning, guys. My name is Sam Sprott. My wife, Sandy, are here to express our concerns again concerning the gathering that's held down at the park of the drag queens. Thank you. It's two voices working together as one. It works so much better. We understood and understand through David that the law precludes you being the council members and of course city manager, from entering into approval or disapproval of the drag queen show here in town and so many other things too. And I understand through private conversation with David that the members of the council are many parents, grandparents, and have concerns for their kids. And we just assume that cultural change not be presented to the kids of Havasu. But your hands are tied. Am I correct on that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And your hands are tied by the state.
Our hands are tied by the Constitution. So the Constitution is what ties our hands with Supreme Court rulings that supports the litigation that went through in support of the Constitution.
Is the state legislature have any control at all concerning this?
They could. I mean, they could try and pass a bill, but it's my understanding that from that perspective that they also are running. The Constitution is for all of us equally, and so if it impacts us, I'm sure it's going to impact them as well. But
there's one state out there that I think just made the news this week. Tennessee passed a state law. They have to be very particular in terms of the language they use, and we'll see what that looks like in terms of how that might spill over into other categories, unintended consequences, and when you try to define certain activities. But that's the only state in the country that I'm aware of that has anything, and that was just signed by the governor of Tennessee earlier this week.
Our pastor this past weekend used a little, what do you call this, prop? This is a prop. People can carry a little bucket with them with gasoline, or they can carry a bucket with water. We are non-confrontational. We carry water. We do not carry gas.
Nice.
Assuming that the 7 members of the council would not prefer the community to not be exposed to this aberrant behavior. Is there some way that we as private citizens, I understand Dave, I think I can speak for you, would be just tickled to death if we did not have to
if you
face
could wrap
that.
up your question. Yeah, we need to get moving on to other questions, but please,
Yeah, we understand.
what's your question?
My question is, can we work together with you all from the outside? Is there something that we as private citizens can do that you all cannot do? If there is, how can we help you? How can we pour water on the situation that you were faced with this past January? And I know it was a contentious situation that you had. How can we make that pass?
Yeah, no, it's a great question on how you can help. Throughout that whole process of what occurred over the last several months about people sharing their displeasure of a particular event. I'm not even going to go into that. There's other events that people don't like that occur in Lake Havasu City.
Sure.
That are we just seem to be narrowly focused on this one thing, and that's your passion point, and I completely appreciate that and understand that. But there's other events that occur in Lake Havasu City that people don't like either. But by bringing so much light to the things that you have displeasure for has only helped fuel those other events and achieve what their goals are on all fronts. I'm not speaking on one group, but talking about your displeasure or not support of something and elevating it to such a high volume is just it's not working in the best interest of the cause, in my opinion.
Is pacification our only?
Possibly, but we can talk afterwards. Hal?
Hey, Kel. I had 2 traffic questions, and you can maybe direct me to who I need to talk to. On the corner of South Palo Verde and Acoma, it's a traffic light, and the timing of the traffic light it's been crazy for the last couple of years. For example, if you're coming down Palo Verde, and when the light turns, whether there's a vehicle there or not, the left turn arrow comes on, and then when it goes off, there's a delay in before you get a green light heading up Palo Verde. And the second question is, on the corner of North Lake Havasu and South Palo Verde, they improved North Lake Havasu a couple of years ago, and there's a condo right as you go past Palo Verde there. And so it used to be you could merge into traffic as you're going north, and now it's right turn only. And I see a lot of people come up there, and they try to cut in there. And I just wanted to know if there's a possibility of returning it to a merge into the left lane.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So Jess made a note about the South Palo Verde and Acoma intersection, so he'll take a look at that and see if what the programming is. I live up by the high school too, so I do that every day, and I never even thought to ask why it does that, but it does do that. And the one over on North Palo Verde, we don't have the right of way, and that's why that was determined at that time to have to. When the median went in on North Lake Havasu Avenue from South Palo Verde to Industrial, that's when that was determined we don't have the right of way. So they decided to, and that was an ADOT project, by the way. So it was funded by ADOT and actually administered by ADOT. So we didn't have a whole lot of say in that. Also, the building right there, the Hastings building, also had a crazy amount of traffic at the time, which it's sat vacant for many years until now. Speed UTV is now in that building. But as far as merging when you get across the intersection, I don't know if there's enough room.
So we're talking about Lake Havasu Avenue and Palo Verde South, right
Yes.
there by Pollo Loco?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a right turn lane only at the stoplight, which is more of a control at that point to try to switch lanes there. As you go through that intersection and travel north, then there's that right turn only lane that exists there, right? Then if you want to turn right, you have to go there. We can't extend that right lane any further going north because we don't have the right of way. It's private property and we don't have enough space to create a second lane. Sure would love to, because you go from 2 lanes to 1 lane back to 2 lanes. We're very, very thankful of the leadership of our founding fathers in Lake Havasu City and Robert McCulloch, and how the streets and the whole community was planned. Boy, we could use some more right away right now. The lanes that you see like on Acoma and the busy streets that that we have and the boulevards that we have in the city, that's all the space we have. So I mean, we have the right lane in some of these streets, right, and the mailboxes are turned sideways because the mirrors are hitting the mailboxes. If we could have another 5 feet, that sure would be a fantastic opportunity. But that's the situation we're in, to try to do the best that we can with the land that we have to build roads, and that's one instance there too. So we have to merge somewhere, and our traffic engineers say the best time to merge is at a stoplight when speeds are obviously low.
Do people have enough warning to know that?
We need a microphone. As far as the warning, the question is there a warning? Yeah, there's a sign as you get there, right? If you're paying attention, and some of us can be distracted by different things, and but there's signage and that's in place, and there's also paint that's in place that says right turn only. So.
Hi.
Good morning. I'm hoping you can offer some guidance on this situation. The companies that come door to door advertising solar. I know in our city code that it talks about having a solicitor's permit for for-profit businesses that come selling things door to door. And the solar companies that are local in our community, I have confirmed, do not send employees door to door selling solar services. The ones that are coming door to door, I've reached out to these companies. They're based in Goodyear, Mesa. Their employees, I've asked for their solicitor's permits because I run a licensed residential business in our community. I don't have the luxury to not answer my door when these people are coming around. What is the best practice that you would recommend when these people are coming around? These companies are not following what the rules of our city are, and not, they're coming from outside our community offering these services and basically are a nuisance.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a great question.
He's right behind you.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to go to the code enforcement or, yeah. So Chief Sterling will
Where you can see
take
me.
that.
So yeah, good question. And matter of fact, I've seen a lot of these applications for soliciting from those companies come through my desk, and we do background checks on them, right, to get them their permits. If you have that question from them, they're not showing you their permit, you need to call us. All right, and we will come out and track them down, and we ensure that they do have the proper permits to be doing business. If not, they get cited for that. Okay? All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Chief. Yeah, that's. Phew.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Danny Reed, and I've owned a house here for over 20 years, and I was one of that 25%. Oh. It was a vacation home. I am here permanently now. I've been here for 14 months. I retired after 40 years with another company. My question, which I have no problem with future growth and stuff like that, you just said we have 46 square miles of Lake Havasu City, and we are building, smaller units, which I agree we need those for workers, okay? We have, 58,000 permanent residents now, over 100,000 here in the wintertime. My question is, with the infrastructure, what is the maximum population that will be here in the future?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We for many years we would say a maximum population, and but it would be received differently by everyone. Some would be like, oh, thankfully then we'll get a Costco, or some other people are like, I don't want to be that big. Yeah, so I always am hesitant to give out a number, but on the general plan, roughly 96,000 residents on the general plan, and that is identified based on land use and water entitlements. So
I think we have a time machine in the budget, so we'll finally be able to purchase one. We'll go into the future and we'll figure this out. But in all seriousness, we have the ability to slowly plan for the future. We are landlocked in terms of BLM, Bureau of Land Management, federal land that's run at obviously the Lower Colorado River. We have some state land within the community. There's several sections of state land on the northern side of Lake Havasu City. When will that go to auction? Could be next year, could be 50 years. So there's a whole lot of things out there that could go in different routes. Bureau of Land Management, that would take a congressional act for that land to be released to the city or to somebody else, which is not easy. But yeah, in terms of like we're using less than our existing water allocation for all of our residents. Who knows what technology might come into place for? We've seen low flow toilets and low flow faucets and shower heads and all these and these appliances that now come out that use less water. Maybe can we continue to advance along those lines and maybe conserve more water with some of that technology? So we do a really good job of trying to plan for the future, and we're able to kind of handle the incremental steps in terms of growth for the future. But there are some really big decisions that could take place that could change that.
Yeah. Yeah, and surprisingly, the housing study that we reviewed on Tuesday has the growth estimates for Lake Havasu City, and it's not as great as you would think. It actually took me by surprise on how little the growth is going to be. One caveat is that in September, a new data is coming out that will update that forecast, and it's not that large. But I think that it happens so fast to all of us once you move here. You come from like a big city, and you're in the hustle and the bustle, and an hour on the freeway is nothing, and you get here and you're like, oh, you locals, you laugh about going to Walmart, and then like a month later, you're like, oh, I'm not going out to Walmart. And so
It's like 10 minutes.
Yeah. So like in a big city, you'll sit through a traffic light cycle 2 or 3 times, and here, if we do it here, all of a sudden our infrastructure's not here to handle it. So that's why we have lights, is to be able to move traffic around. So yeah, Peggy. Good morning.
Thank you. Are we out of water?
No, we're not out of water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then why are we everybody should conserve water, but we're not out of water right now.
No.
And we can afford to build all these pools and add all the population.
Yeah, so it's a careful balance of what we're trying to do is to utilize the water allocation that we have already secured in Lake Havasu City, as well as allowing people to enjoy our beautiful community. So the biggest issue is that we all need to collectively do our part. The Colorado River serves 7 basin states and a treaty with Mexico. And we all have allocations out there. When they originally did the compacts, they were using the hydrology from a very wet season, and the river doesn't produce naturally the amount of water that's been allocated to the point that it's about 16.5 million acre feet annually has been allocated out of the system. And it only produces, they thought, 14.5, but now new hydrology suggests it could be closer to 12. So there's already just immediately a deficit of what that is. So how do we collectively work so that future generations still have water resources within the basin to use, and we don't deplete the system? That's the conversation we're having to how do we do our part to coexist and have a nice balance.
One more question,
Yes.
please. 2 incidents with the police department, and I would just like some clarification on something. A Walmart shooting and the older man getting assaulted on the main street in the city. From what I read in the paper, and this is just the way I surmised it, was these are both incidences that people, like the shooting, these 2 groups knew there was some incidents between them. It wasn't just somebody pulled a gun in Walmart at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
I guess I'd Peggy, refer you to come talk to us afterwards, or come talk to the chief about some of these instances. Yeah.
How about the older man that was assaulted?
Peggy, I invite you we can talk afterwards, or if you, Chief Sterling, Captain Sotner, I can help you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Andrea Postolovsky, and I'm here with Candace Martin, and I'm hoping you can give us some guidance. We are here to discuss the aquatic center. It really seems that we have outgrown the pool there. There's issues with not being able to provide more like swim lessons and expanding our swim teams. And I just wanted to find out how we can begin the process of possibly discussing building another pool outside there where they have, the space for it. I really have no idea how to go about this, so that's why I'm here.
Well, yeah, thank you for being here. And you being here is just started that. So you planted a seed, and we've been hearing from users of the pool, especially the lap swim users are the ones that seem to get pushed out the quickest. We have a kinder swim program that uses that pool. Obviously, a lot of therapeutic classes use the pool. We have 2 swim teams that use the pool. So it's very, very busy. And through Jess and Mike Keene, the Parks and Recreation Director, they're identifying park improvements, and this, or I say park recreation improvements, which include park and this, and that suggestion that you made has come up a few times. And so by you being here today and having that conversation, it will start us to have those conversations at a more deep level with the community and citizens to see how big of an issue that is, where we can program it in our budget plan, and identify those types of things.
We've heard similar concerns and comments coming from the public, and in the end, we were going through a budget process that kind of kicked off officially with the council here last month, and city, we're as a staff, we're trying to put together the budgets the best we can. We literally come up with the number of needs and wants that come from the community are far outweigh our ability to pay for those things. So then we have to then rank and prioritize our projects and pick the ones that makes the most sense. The more we hear from our residents about we need to do this and we need to do that, that helps increase that ranking.
And also, I'm sorry, I don't know what the mic is, but if there's any ability to fundraise to help so that this is something that the city would just be responsible for, I'm sure there's
Yeah.
There's lots of parents who would be willing to go out into the community and find partners, to help, take part in this. We would be more than happy to. We just need to know how we can help.
Yeah, you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
yeah. Get organized and get some money coming our way. Yeah, that's partnerships. In my time on council, partnerships always rise to the top.
Yeah.
Skate park, Cypress Park, pickleball at Dick Stamp. Partnerships always rise to the top, and it seems to bode well with the community. It seems to bode well with the council, and they rise to the top. So anything that you can do to organize would be.
We can talk more afterwards. I'm sorry.
Afterwards,
We on camera.
Yeah.
It makes it difficult. Talk to us.
Yes.
Hi, good morning. I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the superintendent of Lake Havasu Golf Club. I'm sure some of you know me. I just had a question about what does the city have in maybe any future plans for utilizing the reclaimed water and also creating more storage for that water? Currently, the city's been asking our golf course to get rid of roughly 1.3 million gallons per night. I know our population rises in the wintertime. We have some other ideas ourselves at the golf course where we could work with the city. But I just was curious about, obviously, water is a hot topic. And if we can better utilize our reclaimed water, then obviously we'll be using less domestic water, whether it be parks, again, a storage for when we need it in the summertime and things like that. I didn't know if there's any capital projects or anything that's coming up.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. There are capital projects that are coming up for water reuse. There's also some changes in state law for reuse programs and getting credits that can help augment. You might hear augmentation a lot when we talk about water, and those are augmentation projects. And then continuing on with allowing or piping for more areas like our parks and school sites and those types of things for water reuse. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that.
And some of those are long-term projects.
Yes.
I think what the reason why the increased amount of effluent, and the city sells our effluent water to different customers. One of them is the golf course, a great partner. But part of that contract says that if we need to get rid of excess effluent, we're not going to charge you for it, but you have to take it, and that's the concern. We just had 2 really big events in Havasu. We had Rockabilly. We had our Winter Blast that took place. We had a large number of people that came into Havasu. We've had some rains that then increased the water that's in those effluent ponds, and so forth. There's some things that we're thinking about, but they're not going to take place this year or next year. And so appreciate your partnership and maybe kind of do your best to plan ahead when some of these big weekends occur, because that's where the need for us to discharge that effluent could take place.
With your ideas, we're all here, so let's talk.
I'm open to have
Perfect.
members or other department heads come visit us.
Yeah.
We have some ideas.
Perfect. Yeah.
Sure. We've been very, very helpful with the golf
Yes.
course to date. Yeah.
Hi, good morning, Mayor and Jess. I'll be quick. I know we're nearing our time's end. Trudy Hernandez, Mojave Military Museum. It will be our honor to lead the pledge at the City Council meeting ahead of the Vietnam War Veterans Day on the 29th. We'll be here on the 28th with our board member, retired Navy Greg Logan. But my question to you is, when you were speaking earlier today about the 10-year plan that you were going to identify infrastructure, are there other cities maybe who have done that and have found that to be successful?
Yeah, in Lake Havasu City, we're in a unique spot because our sewer infrastructure is actually fairly new when it comes to it. We say new, but we stopped it in 2000 and it was done in like 2010, 11. So, I mean, it's already 11 years old and we started in 2002. So that's already 21 years old. But we have fairly new infrastructure. So yes, cities and towns do this. The ones that don't, you usually hear in the news. With what we've identified is our system's different because we're not a legacy system. We're fairly new when it comes to wastewater. Now, freshwater, we've done some great improvements over the last couple of years with freshwater redundancy, which that's new infrastructure. So yeah, everyone's system is a little bit different, but big level, yes, everyone does that. Yeah, this will be our last question. We're up against we'll be here afterwards to answer anything additional. Yes.
Good morning. I was here Tuesday and listened to the gentleman that gave the very informative, lots of detailed facts about the housing and so on and so forth. But I didn't hear anything about the mini homes that are going up. And they're going up by the 100. So I was just wondering how they fit in. I mean, I have no idea what their pricing is for those units, but I'm just wondering if there's any thought about how they would fit into the affordable housing, workplace housing, that kind of thing. Thank you.
So they're a component of the workforce housing and every different type of inventory we have, whether it be apartment homes, multifamily homes, single-family residential homes, or residential estates. All of those components come in together. The tiny homes, which is a very interesting fact, they don't take any requirement from council or planning and zoning unless they're looking to rezone. But most of the ones you see going up throughout the community right now, like on South Palo Verde, on McCulloch, those are already multifamily lots. And so what they've determined is the code reads that what we would assume would be apartment homes, but they're able to put on those homes because it's less than 20 dwelling units per acre. And so they just found that it's, I'm assuming, less expensive to do it that way. I'm not speaking for them, and I don't know their financials, but because of how many there are, I'm assuming that it's less expensive to do it that way. Some of the units that are in the tiny home format are, we know just because they did come for a rezone, are going to be rental units. They're investments, local families have made investments and they'll be rental units. Others are sold like condos where they actually own the dirt underneath. So each project's just a little bit different, but that is one of the components of that. All right, we are at our time. Sorry, we have a hard stop because those folks watching at home, but as always, we like to end with some fun stats that are happening in the city. From our Public Works Department, we've had them out working to clean out our meter boxes. From September to December of last year, they cleaned out 9,891 boxes.
One at a time.
One at a time, hitting each one. Yeah, 9,800. Great job to that team.
20,000 to go.
Our vehicle maintenance group services 580 pieces of equipment, which includes vehicles, police cars, fire engines, trailers, loaders, dump trucks, light and specialty equipment like mowers and tractors, our Vector trucks, our paint striper, which they see that a lot, unfortunately, and sweepers. And then our street department maintains 442 miles of roadway, 26 miles of sidewalks, 25,000 signs, street signs throughout our community, 25,000, 15 traffic signals, which I actually would have thought were more, but 15 traffic signals are ours, 77 miles of washes. And then our city clerk last year processed 5,200 record requests.
5,200 record requests for information.
Record requests. So, as always, it's such a pleasure and honor to serve you as your mayor. Thank you for coming and enjoying us. We'll see you on April 7th, right here at 8:30. Have a great day. Thank you.